Okay, this time, no, it is about material planning. A while ago, our presenter discussed about the material planning, material requirements planning. This time, this is the material planning in control. Again, material planning is a scientific technique of determining in advance the requirements of raw materials, ancillary parts and components, spares in others. So as directed by the production program, it is the subsystem in the overall planning activity. There are many factors which influence the activity of material planning, and these factors can be classified as macro and micro systems. Okay, when we say macro, some of the macro factors which affect material planning are price, trends, business cycles, government, import policy, and others. When we say micro factors, some of the macro factors that affect material planning are plant capacity of utilization, rejection rates, lead times, inventory levels, working capital, delegations of power in communications. Okay, so of course, as I mentioned earlier, I just simply play the video related to the topic about material planning as presented earlier in our class, in morning class.
Good day, sir and classmates. Today I will discuss a case study of material planning. ABC Corporation is a fashion industry company that has been running for 10 months since its establishment in October.
Wait for a while. Okay, again, this will be the material planning discussion. If you have some questions related to the topic, do not hesitate to post your question in our chat box.
Good morning, everyone. This is Alexis, and I'm going to discuss about my topic, materials planning or material planning. Of course, this topic is under the subject productivity management and quality management. So for the introduction, we have with the development of integrated materials management and supply chain management, material managers have learned that a majority of the material needs of their organizations over a period of 1 year or more can be forecasted in advance with acceptable standards of accuracy. Hence, the material planning, material budgeting, and material control have taken prominent roles in the integrated materials management system. So, the planning of materials and working out realistic material budget can help the smooth functioning of the operations as well as to control the operations effectively. Material planning is concerned with answering three basic questions. What materials are required? How many are required? And when are they required? So, the basic question that we have in mind when we talk about material planning is what is materials planning? So, it is a scientific method of planning and determining the requirements of consumables, raw materials, spare parts, and other miscellaneous materials essential for the production plan implementation. In addition to that, this is the basic definition of materials planning, but in addition to that, material planning can also be described as a subset of the overall production planning and control system. In addition to that, material budgeting helps in the implementation of material planning. the next question that we have in mind is, why is material planning important? Why do I have to do this? Why is this essential in making a business run successfully? So the question and the answer for here is that the planning of materials and working out realistic materials budget can help the smooth functioning of the operations, as well as controlling the operations effectively. And some of its importance are: first is the over ordering or under ordering of materials. The absence of materials planning leads to over ordering or under ordering of materials, and over ordering leads to over investment and of unproductive use of working capital. And we all know the importance of working capital in running a business. And another one is that under ordering leads to material shortage, in which um, may incur delay in executive orders, or may also lead to loss of customers due to the failure, the delay that we have in the business. And next one, we have the escalation of costs of operations. With the lack of planning, we go to unwarranted emergencies or rush of orders, which may lead to costly transportation. And the overall cost of operations increases due to an increase in the cost of transportation, higher rate of interest on working capital, damages, and pilferage, and so on. The next importance of material planning is that purchase becomes a professional activity. So materials planning changes the role of the purchaser into purchase manager or purchase executive, wherein he or she can take decisions independently. This leads to higher accountability and utilization of funds in an optimal manner. So the fourth one is that material planning is an effective control device. Material planning helps the management to track down variations in actual activity as compared to the standards set by the plan. So this helps to control the entire activities related to materials. And since the activities are properly streamlined and standardized, it may motivate the people to work on them. And we talked about the definition of material planning. We talked about why it is important and why do we have to do material planning. And the the last one was the importance of material planning, and now we talk about the benefits. So first one, it avoids the practice of crisis management. Second, it helps to perform effectively and efficiently due to proper forecasts. And the third one is it helps in materials budgeting and purchase planning. So materials planning have two major factors, and they are these two major factors influence the materials planning. So the first one is the macro factors. We have the business cycles, import and export policies, price trends, credit policy, and other global factors. So in short, these are the factors that happens globally that affects the business, and so it affects the material planning that we have. And then we have next is the micro factors, which is the internal organization factors such as production plan, investment, corporate policies, inventory holding, and this are, as we can see, are the things that happen internally in our own organization or company. And then we have the other essential factors such as the time of procurement, working capital, acceptable inventory levels, delegation of power, seasonality, all are those that also influence the material planning. So the key factors influencing material planning can also be shown as inputs based on first, the forecasting and project management type, the total manufacturing order and service order, and the third is capacity, which needs to be produced, as well as the distribution metrics. And finally, depending upon the purchase order and customer order. So referring to the image on the right, we have material planning on the center of projection and forecasting, capacity needed, manufacturing order size, customer demand, and warehouse capacity. So this all revolves around the factors that affect the content or how we decide on material planning. So material planning can be carried out by first requirement based on past consumption. So what requirements do we have in the past consumption that we on the inventory that we consumed on the last year, so that this can be used as a basis on the present material planning that we have. And the second one is the material resource planning, or what we call the MRP in business. So the MRP starts with the production plan of the concerned manufacturing. Once the annual production plan is determined, the material requirement is calculated by detailed analysis of materials not in use and requiring procurement, lead time of procurement, and etc. So next one we have here is the excuse me is the material planning process. So the first step in the process is sales and operations planning, or what we call the SOP. We have here sales and operations planning, sales plan, operations plan, in short, SOP. Okay, and what is an SOP? So an SOP is a forecasting and planning tool that businesses use to enter or generate a sales forecast. An SOP creates a productions plan at the product group level. So then, requirements must be translated into PIRs for the individual materials in the product group, called disaggregation. This one. From SOP, we go to disaggregation, and after disaggregation, we have demand management, wherein the PIRs for the individual materials are then transferred, where they are revised and refined. The MRP creates specific procurement proposals like this: planned orders, purchase requisitions, and then it's the end of the process. So now, just to give you an overview of how a standard SOP planning table looks like. So you can refer to this image on the right. We have the standard SOP planning table. Okay, so what is this and what are its contents? Okay, so the tasks in the sales and operations planning include creating the sales plan, specifying inventory requirements, and creating a production plan. Right here, we have production plan can be created synchronous to sales according to target days supply or target stock level. Okay, so the interface to complete the tasks in SOP is a simple to use spreadsheets like simple to use spreadsheets like tool like this one. Okay, so I'm not going to dive deeper into its content, so I'm just showing you the image so that you can familiarize yourself with the appearance of a standard SOP planning table. So let's proceed to the next one, which is the step 2 of the process, disaggregation. So in this aggregation, we have what triggers the plan, the data, the tasks, and the outcomes. So first one, we have the new operations plan. And for the data, we have to use the organizational data, master data, user input, and the SOP. And then the tasks is disaggregate. That's why it's called disaggregation. So we can disaggregate in here the operations plan and transfer to demand management, which is the next step in the process. And the outcomes are the planned independent requirements, or the PIR. So in short, this step translates the plans into the plans for the finished goods in the product group hierarchy. So after this aggregation, we have step 3, which is demand management. So in here, we calculate revised PIRs for the materials using the PIRs from the SOP after this aggregation. So the actual customer orders or CARs from the fulfillment process and date from the material master regarding planning strategies. So going on to the next one is we have step 4, material requirement planning. So what does this stage do? So this stage calculates the net requirements for materials and creates procurement proposals. Sorry. Material requirement planning is also called the MRP. So to make or buy the necessary materials that ensure that the organization will have sufficient materials available to cover its requirements. So from the words themselves, material requirement planning. So it's basically just buying or making the necessary materials so that the organization will have enough for what is required. Okay. So the next slide, I should actually put in this presentation the material requirements planning process, but I believe it's to be reported by the next reporter. So I'm just going to proceed with and end with my report with reporting. So reporting is includes the important tools that convey information about the planning situation. So these are important tools that we use in making a material plan. So the first is the stock or requirements list. Second is the MRP list or material requirements plan list, and the last one is the planning result report. Okay, so we talked about the definition of material planning. Why is material planning important? The importance of material planning, and the factors that affect the material planning process, and SOP standard planning process. And now is the last topic for today is reporting. So that's basically my report. Thank you, and I hope you learned something. And our case study will be reported by my partner, so I give my floor to Mr. Wolfa.
So, okay, so as what Madam Tan mentioned earlier, no, that of course in material planning, there are some techniques, no, uh, as I mentioned about the bill of material explosion, material planning through bill of material explosion. The basis for material planning actually is the forecast demand for the end products. No? Forecasting techniques such as weighted average method, exponential smoothing, the time series models are used for the same. So once the demand forecast is made, it is possible to go through the exercise of material planning. So bill of materials is a document which shows list of materials required, unit consumptions, location code for a given product. So an explosive chart is a series of bill of material grouped in a matrix form so that combined requirements for different components can be done. Requirements of various materials are arrives at from the demand forecast using bill of materials through explosion charts. Now, this material requirement plan will lead to be the development of delivery schedule of the materials and purchasing of those material requirements. And that's it for the topic material planning.